My name is Aamir Qureshi. I was 16 years old when I died. I grew up in northern Pakistan, in a crowded district near Peshawar. Life was hard, but I had dreams of becoming an engineer, of making something better out of nothing. My father was strict. My mother was quiet and kind. We prayed 5 times a day. I fasted during Ramadan. I respected the Quran, even if I didn't always understand it. But I also had questions, deep ones I never dared speak aloud. Why does God feel so far away? Why do I feel shame more than love? Why do we talk about mercy but live in fear? I kept those questions buried until the day everything exploded. It was supposed to be a normal morning. I was walking to school with my cousin, Malik, when a blast shook the ground beneath us. I remember a deafening roar, the smell of fire, and my body being thrown into the air like paper. Then, silence. No pain, just floating. I looked down and saw dust, bodies, chaos, but I was no longer part of it. I felt weightless. Then I saw a light, not distant, not blinding, welcoming, alive, a presence. And from the center of that light, a figure approached. He didn't say a word at first. He just looked at me, and I knew without anyone telling me this was Jesus. The one I thought belonged to another religion. The one I had been told was just a prophet, or worse, a lie. But standing in his presence, I knew I was looking into the eyes of truth itself. And what he showed me next would tear open my soul and change me forever. I stood in that light, trembling not from fear, but from something far deeper, recognition. It was like my soul had always known him, but never had the courage to admit it. Jesus didn't speak at first. He just looked into me, not at my intimacy. I felt as if he saw everything, my childhood prayers, my quiet doubts, the nights I cried and didn't even know why. And then he said one sentence, soft, gentle, clear. Aamir, I've always loved you. My knees gave out. I collapsed into his presence to know, because I was ashamed, but because I had never felt that kind of love. Not from my father, not from my teachers, not even from the mosque. A love that didn't demand, a love that didn't threaten, a love that simply was. I looked up at him, heart racing, and said, "But I'm Muslim." And he smiled, not mocking, not correcting. "You were made for me, long before you were told who I wasn't." Tears poured from my eyes, though I wasn't crying physically. My soul wept, because something inside me finally understood. He wasn't here to condemn me. He was here to reveal himself to me. Then he reached out and touched my chest. The moment he did, memories flooded me. All the moments I had whispered to the ceiling. All the times I asked, "Where are you?" Every unanswered prayer suddenly felt heard. He said, "You were searching for me through fear. Now you will know me through love." I wanted to stay there. I wanted to melt into that light and never go back. But Jesus had more to show me. "Come," he said. "There are things you must see about your life, your faith, and your people." And what I saw next would break me open in a way I never imagined. When Jesus said, "Come, let me show you," I felt myself being lifted not by wings or wind, but by truth. Suddenly, we were no longer standing in light. We were moving through memory. He showed me my own life, but not like a movie. It was more like I was standing inside each moment again. But this time, I saw it the way he saw it. I saw my childhood, my first time reciting a prayer from the Quran, my mother gently adjusting my cap, my father standing tall with pride and pressure. But instead of just seeing events, I felt the emotions behind them. I saw my loneliness. I saw how I had memorized verses without ever understanding the heart behind them. How I feared hell more than I believed in heaven. How my prayers felt like obligations, not conversations. And through it all, Jesus stood beside Menno, condemning, but weeping. I turned to him and asked, "Were you there? Even then?" He nodded. "I never left, even when you didn't know my name." Then he showed me the day I first saw violence. The day men shouted, "God is great," while holding rifles. I was only 11. I didn't understand the hate in their eyes. And Jesus whispered, "That was not my voice. That was not my way." He showed me how religion had taught me to obey, but not to love. How I had tried to earn closeness with God by doing everything right, but always felt I was one mistake away from wrath. And then he said something I will never forget. "Aamir, I didn't die to make you religious. I died to make you mine." I wept, because for the first time, I saw that God wasn't angry at me. He wasn't waiting to punish me. He wasn't distant or cold or full of conditions. He was Jesus. And he was showing me that everything I had longed for in my religion, peace, closeness, forgiveness, was found in him. And then he said, "There is more. You must see what's happening to others like you, and why your voice will matter." What he showed me next shattered my view of what I thought I knew about truth, faith, and the world. Jesus extended his hand, and the vision shifted again. We were no longer in my memories. We were hovering above the earth, and below us, I saw something I wasn't prepared for. Millions. Young men, women, teenagers, children, Muslims, like me, praying, fasting, crying out, most of them sincere, some of them terrified, others confused. I saw boys my age, repeating verses from the Quran without ever knowing what they meant. I saw girls covering their faces not out of faith, but out of fear. I saw mothers begging God to protect their sons from radicalization. I saw fathers teaching obedience, but unable to offer warmth. And then I saw something darker, a shadow moving among them, whispering lies into their hearts, lies that sounded like truth, lies like, "God doesn't love you until you're perfect. You are only valuable if you obey every rule. Doubt is a sin. Love is weakness. Mercy is for the weak." Jesus whispered, "That voice is not mine." And then I saw what hurt most. I saw young Muslims, boys and girls, just like me, encountering Jesus, in dreams, in visions, in whispers they couldn't explain, and being silenced by fear. I saw them pushing him away, not because they hated him, but because they'd been taught to fear his name. I saw them weeping in secret, unsure what was happening to them. Jesus said, "I am visiting my children. I am calling them by name, but many will not tell their story unless you speak first." I broke, because I realized this wasn't just about me anymore. He was showing me that my voice, my life could be a key to unlocking freedom for others. That if even one person like me stood up and said, "I met Jesus, and he changed me," it could break chains that generations had lived under. And then Jesus looked at me, and with such fierce love said, "You died in fire, but you will return with light." I was shaking, because I could feel it. I was being sent back. But before I could leave, he said, "There is one more thing I must show you: what happens when you live with me, and what happens when you reject my love." And what he showed me next was more real than anything I had ever feared or hoped for. Jesus stood beside me, but the atmosphere shifted. It wasn't peaceful, no, it was heavy, solemn, like the weight of eternity itself rested in his next words. "Aamir," he said, "you've seen your life. You've seen others like you. Now you must see the two paths before every soul." And then I saw heaven, not clouds, not harps, not a fantasy. It was real, solid, radiant, every color more alive than anything I'd ever seen. The air itself, hummed with joy. I saw people of every race, tribe, and tongue loving, worshiping, glowing with love. No shame, no fear, no striving. They didn't just believe they belonged. I saw Jesus at the center, not demanding attention, but naturally drawing it. Every heart pulsed toward him. Every face was turned to him like flowers to the sun. And I wanted to run into it, to stay, forever. But then he said, "Now, I will show you what happens when love is rejected." Those set, and we descended. I felt the warmth vanish, the light dim. I saw emptiness. But it wasn't just darkness. It was separation. I saw souls millions wandering, aching, trying to fill the void with pride, logic, religion, or rebellion, but nothing worked. I felt the regret in them like a scream, with no sound. Some were angry, some were numb, all were alone. And Jesus whispered, with a pain in his voice I'll never forget, "I died to save them, but they would not come." He didn't say it with blame. He said it with grief, as one who had paid everything and still was refused. I turned to him, tears running down my soul, and asked, "Why would anyone say no to you?" He replied, "Because they never saw me for who I am, and no one told them I loved them." That moment wrecked me, because I realized people don't reject Jesus, they reject the lies told about him, and I knew I had to go back to tell them he's not a threat. He's not a Western invention. He's not a rival God. He's the very one we've been searching for all along. Jesus turned to me and said, "It is time. You will return changed. You will speak, and I will speak through you." And then the light engulfed me, and I woke up back in my broken body. But my soul was new. The moment I opened my eyes, everything felt different. The pain hit. First, my legs were broken, my chest wrapped in bandages, tubes in my arms. Doctors were shouting. My mother was crying, but I wasn't afraid. I wasn't confused, because I had seen him. I had met Jesus, and now nothing else mattered. They told me I had been dead for nearly 3 minutes, that the explosion killed several people, including my cousin Malik, that I was lucky to be alive. But I knew better. I wasn't lucky. I was sent back. And from that first breath, I couldn't stop saying his name. Jesus. His name is Jesus. He's real. I saw him. My ATATE2. My mother wept harder, but not from joy, from terror. My father's face went pale. They thought I was delusional, or worse, that I had dishonored everything we believed. But I didn't care, because I couldn't lie. I had died, and Jesus met me in the light. At first, they tried to silence me. Nurses warned me. Relatives avoided me. A local imam came and told me to repent for my hallucinations. But when I looked him in the eye and said, "I saw the one your soul was made for," he didn't have an answer. I began praying in secret, not in Arabic, not in memorized phrases, but with words I felt. Words like, "Jesus, lead me. Jesus, I am yours." And every time, I felt peace. Not fear, not pressure, just presence. I couldn't walk yet, but I was standing on something stronger than legs. I was standing on truth. I began reading secretly, first the Injil, then the Gospels. Every word felt like fire. Not religion, life. The same voice that met me in death was on every page. And slowly, I began to share my story with a cousin, then a nurse, then a stranger online. Some rejected it, but others leaned in. Others knew I wasn't crazy. They had seen him too. Jesus wasn't just saving me. He was calling others through me. But I also knew the cost was coming, and I had to be ready. Because once a Muslim teen boy meets Jesus and refuses to stay silent, the world doesn't react kindly. And yet, I would never go back, because the one I met, he's worth everything. As word of my testimony spread, the whispers became louder. Some said I had been brainwashed. Others said I was possessed. My father refused to look at me. My older brother warned me, "Stop saying his name, Aamir. You're going to destroy this family." But I couldn't. How do you silence the truth once it's burned into your soul? I wasn't trying to convert anyone. I just kept saying the one thing I knew no one could take from me. I died, and I saw Jesus. And then the pressure came. A local cleric visited our home. He sat across from me, calm but cold. He said, "If you renounce this foolishness, we'll call it a mistake. But if not, your life will change forever." I looked at him, barely able to sit upright in my wheelchair, and said, "My life already changed." The moment he said my name, he left. That night, my uncle threatened to disown me. A few relatives stopped visiting. My school refused to take me back. The same people who had once praised my studies now called me lost. But I didn't feel lost. I felt found. Because every time I whispered his name, Yeshua, Isa, Jesus, I felt him with me. Stronger than any fear, closer than any family. He wasn't just a prophet. He was the shepherd who found me in the fire. And one day, as I sat beneath a tree behind our home, praying quietly, I heard him again. Not in words, but in spirit. He said, "Don't be afraid, Aamir. They can take your place in this world, but they can't take your place in mine." That moment gave me courage I didn't know I had. I started sharing my story more publicly online, through messages, through a hidden network of other secret believers, Muslim background teenagers who had also seen dreams, visions, light. Jesus wasn't done with our people. He was just getting started, and I was willing, even if it cost me everything, to be part of that awakening. Because once you've looked into the eyes of eternal love, nothing else matters. But one day something happened that tested that truth, and it would push my faith to the edge. It happened just months after I began sharing my story publicly, quietly, but boldly. One morning, two men arrived at our door. Not friends, not family, strangers. One wore a uniform. The other carried questions that weren't really questions. They took me to a small room. Plain, no windows. They said I was spreading lies, that I was dishonoring Islam, that I was bringing shame to the community. They didn't scream. They didn't beat me. They didn't need to. Their message was clear. Deny him, and you go free. Stay with him, and this becomes your life. For a moment, my heart raced. I was 16, weak, still healing. I thought of my mother. I thought of my future. And then I remembered his eyes. I remembered how Jesus looked at me when I died. Not with threat, not with fear, but with love so powerful, it made every sacrifice worth it. I straightened my back, looked them in the eye, and whispered the only truth that had ever set me free. I saw him. He is real, and I am his. They stared at me in silence. Eventually, they let me go. Not because they believed me, but because they feared what my story might ignite. Since that day, I've had to move. I've had to hide, but I've never been more alive. Because now, I live for one thing, to tell my people and the world that Jesus is not the enemy of Muslims. He is the answer we were always searching for. He is not a Western god. He is not a traitor to our culture. He is the truth that found me in death and gave me life. And if you're reading this, and you're wondering if it could be true, let me say it clearly. Yes, he's real, and he loves you more than you've ever imagined. My name is Aamir. I was a Muslim boy, but now, I belong to Jesus.